has marred the second day of voting in Kenya's general election. Politicians from all sides have complained of widespread fraud. It's only the second time elections have been held since the introduction of a multi-party system 5 years ago. The 73-year-old president has held power for 19 years. Critics accuse him of being a dictator. Re-election would give him another 5 years in office. He's up against 12 candidates from the opposition parties. East Africa correspondent Martin Dawes reports.
Opposition supporters have taken to the streets to safeguard their election. Polling turnouts have been high, and so are the expectations of those opposed to President Moi, even here in his home area, and they're alleging fraud.
The kind of people started stealing our vote. They disappeared with a ballot paper.
It's getting brutal. Police shot at opposition vigilantes who thought ballot boxes were being smuggled into a count to rig the vote. 2 people were killed. There's little trust at the counting centres, where party observers leap at any perceived irregularities. And now the president and the ruling party have said the country's electoral commission rigged votes in support of the opposition.
The party has noted that ballot papers were either missing or were less than required only in areas that solidly support candidates.
Any vehicle approaching counting centres risks being searched by people who fear they may be cheated. Counting will go on, while the risk of factional violence seems ever more real. Even as the first results are being announced, the integrity of the election process is being undermined at an alarming rate, and it's difficult to see how the outcome will be honoured by all sides. Martin Dawes, BBC News, Nairobi.
A new way of treating cancer by freezing tumours using liquid nitrogen has gone on trial at a London hospital. The technique involves keyhole surgery and kills off the cancer cells. One patient has undergone the treatment, another 19 will follow in the next few months.
At 61, John Grindrod had hoped to spend more time on his hobby, photography. But last year he was diagnosed with bowel cancer. Despite treatment, secondary tumours appeared in his liver. But instead of having major surgery, he became the first person to undergo an experimental procedure using keyhole technology, leaving him with just a small scar.
Where the other ones have got large scars, I mean, I've got a little imprint on the side there, and it could be a spot for all it looks like. It's amazing.
The operation, performed at the Westminster and Chelsea Hospital, took place in the X-ray department. Using ultrasound to guide them, the surgical team inserted a probe into Mr. Grindrod's liver. Using liquid nitrogen, the temperature of the tip of the probe was reduced to minus 190 degrees Celsius, which then destroyed the cancerous tumours.
The main benefit we would expect is that by controlling the disease within the liver, we can delay the appearance of any unpleasant symptoms resulting from growth of the disease in the liver, and sustain the patient's quality of life. And we also hope that we will be able to prolong their life by controlling the disease within the liver.
Good afternoon, Karen Cancer. Can I help you?
Every year, 30,000 people are diagnosed with bowel cancer. Many develop secondaries in their livers. While not suitable for everyone, campaigners say this technique could be an important step forward.
Although it's not a cure, it is a way of keeping people well for much longer, and by that way maintaining their quality of life, and that is vitally important for people that are suffering from cancer.
For John Grindrod and his wife Marjorie, the treatment has provided new hope, and if the trial proves successful, thousands could benefit from it in the future. Richard Hannaford, BBC News.
The New Year's Honours List, to be published at midnight, will fulfil the government's pledge to reward those working in education. When he became Prime Minister, Tony Blair said he wanted the honours system to recognise the efforts of teachers. 3 heads will receive top honours and other awards for teachers, school secretaries and crossing attendants. Telephone users who want to change companies will be able to keep their old numbers. Until now, only BT has been obliged to let customers hold on to existing numbers. The industry's regulator, Oftel, said having to change numbers hindered competition. Plans have been put forward for a garden of remembrance for Diana, Princess of Wales, in front of her former home at Kensington Palace. The Royal Parks Agency has submitted the proposal to a government committee, considering how best to commemorate the life of the princess. Oxford and Cambridge universities look set to lose some of the special funding, which results in them getting £1,700 more per student than other universities. Ministers are deciding whether the extra money which comes from the taxpayer can be justified, while Oxford and Cambridge continue to take fewer than half of their students from state schools. Education correspondent Mike Baker reports.
Hopeful sixth formers arrived for their interviews at St Peter's College, Oxford. Last year, only 4 in 10 Oxford places went to state school pupils. That's embarrassing for the university at a time when the government is deciding whether Oxford and Cambridge should continue to get an extra £35 million subsidy not available to other universities. The extra funding is because the university is made up of individual colleges, which each get state money on top of the university's grant. Claire and Alex attend state schools which rarely send pupils to Oxford. The university wants more applicants like them, knowing the government expects it to widen access. But Oxford's traditional image puts off many state school pupils, despite renewed efforts to reach out to them.
This is the library.
New schemes to target state schools and invite pupils on summer taster courses are being tried.
Well, I came to a summer school in July which was designed to encourage state school applicants, and that really did help. That demystified the image of Oxford a lot.
They could do a bit more to improve the image. Lots of people in my school didn't apply because they thought it was a place for people who go to private schools, and that put a lot of people off.
Around 60% of the pupils who get 3 A's at A-level come from the state sector. Oxford and Cambridge would like a similar proportion of their entrants to come from state schools. But one of the biggest problems is persuading enough of them to apply here in the first place. But Oxford, though keen to get more state school students as part of a deal to keep its extra funding, rejects any suggestion of quotas.
The argument for any kind of superior public funding for Oxford and Cambridge depends on them being the national centres of excellence in this huge range of subjects which they do, being on the same level as Harvard or Yale or Princeton or whatever. And that, I think, is what has to be preserved, and you can't preserve that while at the same time reducing your entry standards.
Internal government battles continue over Oxford and Cambridge's funding premium. An announcement is due early next month, and it looks as if a compromise is being worked out, which will involve a gradual reduction, not abolition, of the Oxbridge premium. Mike Baker, BBC News, Oxford.
A nurse in America suspected of killing over 100 elderly patients in his care has appeared in court in Indiana. So far, Orville Majors has been charged with 6 murders, but police are investigating at least 147 deaths at the hospital where he worked.
Orville Majors was a licensed nurse at the Vermilion County Hospital, Indiana. He stands charged of murdering 6 patients in his care. The police suspect him of killing as many as 100.
I don't mean to imply or to say that there were 6 murders and 6 murders only. There were other deaths that were suspicious, and there were very difficult decisions for us to make on which cases to file.
During a 2-year investigation, police exhumed the bodies of 15 patients. Majors is suspected of injecting them with lethal doses of potassium chloride. According to his wife, Fred Miller was in hospital with mild bronchitis when he died unexpectedly.
I had been told that he was